Hello and welcome to The League Presents, a show by the League of Women Voters of Newton, where we will talk about topical issues important to our community. My name is Marcia Johnson and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Newton. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, which has been observed in the United States since 1949. Today we are having a conversation about this very important subject. Many in Newton have experienced mental health challenges, whether it be themselves personally, a family member, friend, or coworker. The League is presenting a two-part program, the first being this show, where we will familiarize you with the resources that are available through Newton's Health and Human Services Department and NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm so pleased to have Susie Newman of NAMI, Newton Wellesley, President, and Megan Kennedy, Director of Social Services, of Newton here in the Health and Human Services Department, join me for this important conversation. But before we start, slide one, Maureen, I want to explain a little bit, thank you, about why the League might be talking about this, because people think of the League as voting. So the League is where membership is open to all citizens of voting age. It is a nonpartisan, multi-issue, grassroots organization that encourages informed and active participation in local, state, national government, and develops positions on issues. An important part, we develop positions on issues, but does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. One of the issues on which we have taken a position is around measures to improve mental health programs. So we work to advocate for programs that will help people with mental health challenges. The League of Women Voters of Newton also, for this year of 2022-23, had a program priority of meeting the needs of Newton's diverse student population within our schools. And then what we are proposing to our membership for a vote in June is to change a little bit what we're looking at, because we all know question one in the override did not succeed. And one of the important parts for us as a league was to support student needs in the area of the rising mental health needs of our students. So we have a focus, and we thought that with Mental Health Awareness Month, it would be a perfect time to bring these two wonderful women here today to talk with me, chat with me. So I'm going to open this with Megan to talk a little bit, an overview of how and then supporting kind of a dialogue between NAMI, between Susie and Megan about how Newton, both from the city government as well from nonprofit, to support students, because we know we hear a lot about students, families, because it's a family affair, as well as seniors in a lot, especially with the pandemic. So Megan, if you'd like to start, and then we'll kind of turn it and go back and forth, okay?
Excellent, thank you. First, I just want to say thank you for having me here today. I think it is such an important and critical issue, and I'm honored that you thought of social services to bring it forward. And I think more conversations like this need to happen, so I just wanted to open it up that way. It's really important, and I was impressed that you reached out, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So the Department of Social Services lives within the Health and Human Services Division of the city government. So we have on staff of social services myself, Jenna Bancroft is the Assistant Director of Social Services, Meg Murtaugh is the Director of Youth Services, Elaine Jobson is a bilingual case manager, and Corey Hauser is a bilingual case manager. So we do a lot of different things. One of our charges is to bring forward information on mental health programming and mental health issues impacting our community. How do we do that? It's a big task, right? So how do you do it for a whole city? What we try to do is really work with our trusted partners in the community. We talk to the Newton Public Schools frequently. We talk to Newton Wellesley Hospital, which NAMI is part of. That's where you're part of a little bit of. And so we talk to Newton Wellesley Hospital. We talk to our friends in the police department, the fire department, our ambulance services. We talk to our folks to find out kind of what is happening on the ground in the community and what people are seeing. We then kind of take those challenges and difficulties and develop programming and supportive services around that. So most recently we had a program on teens and their parents just at the Newton Free Library last week, where it was how to have a conversation with your teen, which is huge. I have a 14-year-old and I'm always learning new ways to talk to her. And Samaritans did that. So Samaritans is a nonprofit that is focusing on suicide prevention. They are a trusted partner. They come and they talk to parents and they talk to the teens about.
And that's a big issue these days, right?
Yes, absolutely. And reducing and preventing suicide by increasing communication and trust is between families, between friends, between community partners is where we want to live. I think. I think that program allowed for healthier discussions. So we bring programs to city, buildings like the library. We have also done a lot of programs on Zoom in the age of COVID. We did a lot of that, which was helpful. We did some crisis intervention panels with the Newton Police Department, Newton Wellesley Hospital. Riverside Community Care is a very, very trusted, again, partner who delivers a lot of the direct service to clients and residents in our city. So we did a crisis intervention panel. If families were experiencing a crisis at home, what do you do? What does that look like, sound like, feel like in real time? And how do you navigate these big systems that feel scary? Are you calling police? Are you calling fire department? Are you calling a trusted friend? Are you calling NAMI? Are you calling 988? We walk through those scenarios and help people really feel confident in the choice that they make and then make sure that they're connected to those choices. The other part of the work that we do is I work with Riverside on contracts for the city. So that is, we have 3 contracts. One is for a school-based emergency services person. So this person is a mobile crisis intervention clinician. The schools can call her if there's a student in crisis, and she goes in and does an evaluation, and she works with the family. It was new last year. I'm really proud of that contract, and she is a great resource for the schools. We hear that a lot. Families, and we also have youth and families, a social worker for them too, and there's also our outpatient center at Newton Corner. So a lot of the work that we do is connecting, partnering with organizations, and really trying to get the word out and information out that we do exist and that we're helpful if we can be.
So Susie, how might what work that you do kind of link with what?
Let me go back quickly and so NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, so a national organization based in Arlington, Virginia. But we are one of the 600 affiliates.
Oh, wow.
So, but they're both state and local affiliates. We're called NAMI Newton Wellesley, but we actually serve 9 towns in the western suburbs. I think we started Newton Wellesley because we were hosting pre-COVID.
That's what I remember.
We have they've generously given us space to have some of our programs there, and NAMI Newton Wellesley, and then we also have NAMI Massachusetts. So we offer different. We are the most local of the organizations, and so being that, we really do the most. I'd say direct contact with people. Our 2 most well-known programs are our support groups and our education groups. Support, education, and advocacy are our 3 pillars that we really try and.
So when you say a support group, if I have a friend or child or myself, something with, say, eating disorders.
Sure.
So that would be something, is it a support group that the families, parents can go to, or is it just for the individual? How does that work?
The ones that NAMI Newton Wellesley offers. And again, most of these are on Zoom, but we've just started back actually having one at Newton City Hall, one of our support groups. And the ones that we are offering are for the families of someone with a diagnosis. And unlike some of the other support groups, I think it focuses directly, on a range. Sometimes you will go to support groups just for an eating disorder,
Okay.
or just for. So this is a little broader, but I think NAMI's niche is that our support groups are led by those who've already experienced the similar situations, and maybe not exact same diagnosis, but we also have gone through family members with mental illness. So we're not just speaking of some service out there. It's usually what we've used and what our loved ones have used, and bringing that experience to it. So in terms of, you were starting with students, we tend to not have as many programs directly for students. So we do go to Newton North holds their health fair, and we show up there. We would love to show up at any health fair that are out there in the schools, because it's hard to actually get inside the schools and just raise awareness that you're not alone. There are services to ask for. I think we came in and brought a poster of people that have self-identified themselves already with a particular diagnosis, and oh, these are public people. I know them. This
Oh,
is
right.
it.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
that was
Yes.
that was
That's a good idea.
We did get some student reaction that way.
Well, actually, I went to the Me Too Boston
Oh, the Boston
concert
Symphony,
Okay.
that was held. The concert was not 2 days ago, but a week ago, and an orchestra, and they did it at Newton North, and it was interesting. They had people self-identify what their challenge was.
Excellent.
And then how they got into the playing a particular instrument and being part of the orchestra, and I thought it was very, very interesting. And there was a teacher from Newton.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And actually, one of our very recent things we're trying is our medical director, our national medical director, had written a book,
Yes.
You Are Not Alone. And we decided to bring out some more awareness. We would donate books to the guidance departments in each of the schools.
You
So
can
we
have another
been-
book. I'm going to give you my book.
Well, we have been going around. It gave us that little
In.
if you
That's right.
will, but connection, with the schools, both at all levels. So it was certainly at the more guidance at the high school level, but and middle school, but in the elementary levels, brought them over to the school psychologists, and we'll see if that's, we're really just trying to get the word out that there are these programs
That's
available.
right.
They're free. I think that's, again, they're on Zoom, and then with NAMI, because they're now mostly on Zoom, even if you can't, if the time slot that ours is off, there are support groups. We have second Tuesday and third Wednesday of the month, but if that doesn't fit into your schedule, there are the other affiliates in our state that offer them. So you
Except in Zoom, so you can
could
tune
go
in.
to others.
Now, do you work with any of the physicians or psychologists or psychiatrists and kind of help them to understand that services are out there? So, because if you're faced with this and you just don't know where to go, so as a way of spreading, the word about what's there for people who may be panicking.
We have done some outreach, but not enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that it seems like a tailor-made option out there, but
Right.
sometime, during COVID, nobody wanted to leave flyers out, and
Yeah, that's true.
you know, there was some of that, but really just meeting people and letting them know.
Well, you can spread this video.
That's right.
That too. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we do find that more often than not, we are working with, if we're on Zoom or if we're on our website, we get emailed from doctors and psychologists as well, and try to do general practices, offices. A lot of the folks that we work with need psychiatrists. A client that am currently working with called me right before I jumped in the car to come here and said, I need someone to help me with my medicine, and it's really hard right now. So that's one way is saying, okay, who can we connect with you at Riverside or Newton Wellesley, and doing the legwork to help people with that.
Okay. Good. So the students that you typically work with, are they primarily high school or middle school? Or, you know, or is it a range?
We work mostly with the families of the students.
Yep.
And they're a full range.
Okay.
We have a kindergartner now whose parents are having a hard time, and that goes all the way up to Meg Martin Youth Services is, you know, working with 21, 22, and high school students doing the summer internship program. And what we're doing is embedding social emotional learning and mental health awareness into that internship. But we are seeing mental health issues, mental illness across the whole lifespan, starting earlier.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so what about seniors?
Sure, I think that's another big group that we're trying to get the word out for. The Department of Senior Services has a social worker working with them. There's also social workers now. The director of Social Senior Services, Mignon, has a social work background as well. So I think what we're trying
Jane
to
left.
do is, I know, it goes right to Jane, right?
Yeah, right.
And Mignon's been great, really kind of
That's great.
looking at the mental health, and we're looking again across the lifespan. And I think understanding there are some services tailored specifically for seniors, you know, folks over 60, and we're looking at, you know, suicide rates and really looking at that data and targeting populations, and men over age look.
Now, do you, because I know that some seniors, because I've, you know, had seniors in my life,
Sure.
and you'd go to visit, you know, assisted living or nursing homes, and some people just never see their families.
That's
So
right.
do you engage for seniors, families as well?
I mean, one of the things I had spoken earlier of the support group, so
Sure.
education was the second one, that we have a family-to-family program, and that is really for the family members over 21 because of more of privacy and
Right.
stuff. So it's for people over 21 attending that group, and I would say 60. I'm one of the facilitators for that, and 60-70% are the parents. And when your loved one might be in their 30s, then you're starting to approach more of the senior group. But certainly the family-to-family class provides a little more understanding, a lot more empathy of what's going on. I know it's a 8-week class, so it's not
wonderful,
short.
right?
But
And I think what we're seeing too, not to interrupt you, but to kind of pivot to what you were talking about, we're seeing a lot of people with, you know, 30-year-old, 40-year-old children living at homes, you know, with 20-year-old with significant mental illness.
Right.
And that is a population, just like you're talking about, that peer-to-peer model that you were talking about earlier too, leading support groups, is so important around
I would
mental
think so
illness
for
and
the
mental
young
health
adult.
issues.
Yeah.
It's an incredible model that is so critical. So what NAMI does is so important in that specific point. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Well, it's gratifying to
Sure.
be one of the leaders, because it's there are a lot of stories out there that are just heartbreaking, and you want to provide a little guidance.
Yeah.
I think that's really, you know, people think, oh, I'll just go find a doctor and get a pill,
That's
and
right.
I'm all set. It's like, not so much.
right.
I know that's one part of it, but you know, it's a system that really needs to be navigated, and sometimes when you have someone that's gone through it, it just is a lot easier to go through it together.
Just as I was thinking, looking at the paper and stuff, and hearing various things, I'm a newsaholic, I'll just kind of leave that, retired newsaholic. And the whole thing of social media and how that might, both of you, if you could talk a little bit about how that is impacting the people. I mean, it could be family members, youth, whatever, probably less so seniors, but yet some seniors, you know, as we're seeing, I don't know about here, but what you hear in other parts of the country anyway. So how does social media play into the work that you do and how you're helping various families and individuals?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, in terms, I think of it more at schools, you know, in terms of where it might be setting expectations and unrealistic expectations, and I think we try to, actually we had a program, I think last year at the library, that had someone come in and go through.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
it was
you
youth
may be a
services
part of
too.
it.
Yes, yes.
So what was this?
So they came through telling you, okay, you know, you see something, you know, let's dive just a little deeper and see where that's coming from, and really trying to find out what the sources are, and to not just take everything as it's played out. You know, just
Right.
dig a little deeper, and don't think that what you see is the only thing out there. So I think.
Yeah, I think there's like that false sense of perfection.
Yeah.
There's a false sense of everything's okay when it may not be okay.
Right.
And I think there's, you know, concern in the community, or, you know, medical and psychiatry, of overdiagnosing, you know, kids are diagnosing themselves
Okay.
with a mental illness that may not be a mental illness, but may be, you know, part of adolescence. So I think there's a lot of different
that's right.
pockets, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah,
like, I
I
have
hadn't thought of
depression, I
that.
have
Yeah.
anxiety, and
Yeah.
yes, that may be true, but diagnosing and kind of posting it on social media, it increases the worry for families, and sometimes it's just a hard day,
Yeah.
and people are allowed to have hard days.
Yeah.
We are.
Right. So I think there's some of that as well. I think the schools are doing a really nice job. I think there's more education around it, and, you know, speaking for my daughter is 14, it's like, do you know what's true and not true? And we talk about it quite a bit. It's having those conversations.
So I want to come back to seniors. I know that the city has a, I'm going to call it a task force or working group
Sure.
around hoarding.
Yes.
And I would think that has some touches to do. Either of you get involved, or does that, because with, you know, not always older people, but it can be older people.
Sure.
that,
I think we have a joint task force now. It's a little bit different than what the old hoarding task force was. It's more inspectional services and social and health department. But hoarding is really interesting and really, really hard to treat, work with, and live with if you're a family member. The trauma behind a hoarding disorder is significant. It isn't just about it has very little to do with any of the things that's collecting. It's about the trauma that more often than not folks are experiencing. So when you see these television shows, right, which sensationalize it, and they do all these clean outs, and then things are back in, a year or less, it's because the thing that is underneath the hoarding is not being treated. And we do get a lot of reports from the fire department. I work with my friends in the fire, and they're like, "What's going on, Megan?" And it's hard. It's hard for community members and folks to see. But people have a right to live the way they want to live, unless they're in danger of hurting themselves or someone else, right? We go back to that quite a bit. I'm sure
yes, we do.
Yeah, right. And it's one of those things that you're allowing that person to have autonomy and balancing the safety of the community, the self, and the property owner.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, about living the way they want to do, because I would think that would be a hard thing for a family member, watching whatever's going on, and especially with a young adult. You know, when do I, as a mom or dad, big sister, big sister, little sister, how does that all work?
I mean, we do put out there guidelines if suicide is the issue.
Yes.
And, certainly, safety is the first thing.
Yep.
But beyond that, NAMI, membership of NAMI includes peers, those with mental illness as well as their families. And so it is a bit of a balance when you, particularly my family-to-family class, I'm hearing a lot more from the family side and experience that side, when to make a call. I mean, that's really and I think who to call has changed dramatically quite recently. So that's where we're trying to, I guess, educate the parents.
Yes.
Okay.
What would happen next?
Well, we've got only a couple minutes left. I'm sure that surprises you, and I have a little long closing.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about our next step.
Excellent.
So, Megan and Susie, thank you for an informative and educational conversation. I really appreciate your sharing information about the resources and services available to community members when faced with the challenge of determining how to assist those who are important to us. For our viewing audience, please watch for part 2 of this conversation with our webinar on May 30th at 7 p.m., where Susie, Megan, and someone from the Newton Public Schools will join me for a panel discussion where you can tune in and ask questions of these wonderful women. Looking forward to our June programming, yes, June is around the corner, when we will hold a Pride Month program, when we'll talk to LGBTQ+ students in Newton about their experiences and how we as a community can best support them. In today's highly charged political climate, queer and gender non-conforming young people have unwittingly become front and center. From Florida to right here in Newton, LGBTQ+ teens receive negative messages from society at a time in their life that's already challenging. So in closing, it seems like an appropriate time to talk about it takes a village to raise a child. I'm sure you've all heard of that. And I think it's a fitting phrase as we've talked about briefly to mental health here, and we're going to move to LGBTQ+ in June. And it describes the current challenges before us. This is a proverb attributed not to Hillary Clinton, but to African cultures, and means that an entire community must provide and interact with children for them to experience and grow in a safe and healthy environment. And with the NAMI folks, and you have a NAMI walk coming up.
We do this Saturday, 9 to 1 at Artisani Park.
Great, thank you. And our program, and with Megan, thank you so very much. So as we close here, I want to let people know that you can contact the League of Women Voters of Newton with comments or ideas on this show and on future topics by emailing info@lwvnewton.org. The specific comments and opinions made during this program do not necessarily represent those of the League of Women Voters. This program can be viewed on newtv.org or find a link to this show on the League's website, lwvnewton.org. Thank you to my guests and the New TV crew, and I hope everybody out there is enjoying the spring here in Garden City, in the Garden City.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.